I'm home. As Mike would say, I'm junk drunk.
In American Pickers, Frank Fritz is not only famous for his ability to find antiques, but also for his deep friendship with Mike Wolfe. However, his journey ended unexpectedly, leaving many fans with regrets. But what was the reason behind his departure? Let's take a look back at this emotional journey. Let's take a look at the events that led to Frank Fritz's departure from American Pickers, a standout among other reality shows. The show offered a fascinating adventure into the world of antiques, focusing on the skill of digging up forgotten treasures. The show was hosted by Frank Fritz, Danielle Colby-Cushman, and Mike Wolfe, with Danielle playing a key role in making the show a success. Her energetic personality and extensive knowledge helped enrich the storylines. However, behind the spotlight, the pressures of fame began to affect the personal lives of the cast members, especially Frank. He felt weighed down by the busy filming schedule, the stares from the audience, and the constant invasion of his personal space. Reality television put him in the limelight in places he didn't want to be, which made him doubt his moral compass and went against his natural tendency for solitude. While dealing with the consequences of Frank's actions, how can we ensure that the program remains credible and honest? How will the other members of the squad react to his departure? Stay tuned for additional updates. Underneath all the teasing and bargaining that goes down on TV, there are the actual struggles of relationships, the pressures of fame, and individual issues. A plotline that piqued the interest of the audience was Frank Fritz's noticeable absence. This film delves further into the events and circumstances that prompted this major shift in the show's storyline. The classic adage, "What one man discards is another man's treasure," was rethought and reimagined for the American Pickers series. This went beyond a simple presentation. The mission was to find historically significant artifacts with monetary value in dilapidated barns, crumbling attics, and dusty basements across the country. The show gave viewers a glimpse into the quaint world of antique picking, which involves sifting through random objects in search of ones that may be worth a lot of money. Wolfe and Fritz investigate various locations where individuals have kept their antiques and collections, including houses, barns, sheds, and outbuildings. Anyone having an excessive amount of stuff they don't know what to do with, whether they're serious collectors or just starting out, is welcome to join them. Fritz loves peanut-related goods, ancient Hondas, oil cans, and vintage toys, whereas Wolfe has been picking since he was 4 years old and has a specific interest in vintage motorbikes, air-cooled Volkswagens, vintage bicycles, and penny farthings, along with vintage ads and billboards, movie posters, a visible fuel pump that holds 15 gallons, and a Piaggio ape, which according to their acquaintance is likely the sole one in North America, they have acquired. Antique archaeology acquired a portion of a 1914 car factory in Nashville, which once manufactured the Marathon automobile, for a second company facility in December 2011, according to American Pickers. This allowed them to reduce the distance needed to bring their treasures from the southern states. The show's two most pivotal characters were Mike Wolfe and Frank Fritz. Their on-screen camaraderie, extensive knowledge of antiques, and the thrill of the adventure kept viewers hooked. In contrast, what really drew people in was the genuine bond they had. Mike and Frank were not like many other reality TV personalities manufactured by a casting agent. On the contrary, their relationship extended back to their school days and provided a sincere foundation for their television encounters. There was an intriguing interaction between Frank and Mike because of Frank's more pragmatic approach and Mike's enthusiastic demeanor and a good eye for diamonds. While Mike was engrossed in the historical anecdotes that accompanied the antiques, Frank was well aware of the possible profits that could be earned from them. Their sometimes hilarious and occasionally furious conversation resonated with the crowd. Because of this, they were able to win in their favor. It gave a genuine representation of a situation in which differences in personalities and opinions do not harm the connection between the buddies on any level. In addition to being a part of the team that was responsible for selecting the candidates, Danielle Colby-Cushman was also a member of the team that was responsible for ensuring that everything worked well. Within the scope of her tasks, she was accountable for conducting territory reconnaissance, establishing communication with potential leads, and coordinating the logistics of each pick. Danielle added a new and vibrant vibe to the event, which was a result of her energetic personality, her tattooed appearance, and her extensive understanding of the picking business. As part of her job, she was responsible for acting as a link between the audience and the world of picking. She also provided frequent insights and background material that added richness to the tale of each episode. In addition to being a facilitator for Mike and Frank's adventures, she was much more than that. Being a significant member of the American Pickers team, she exemplified the need to conduct research and establish connections to achieve success in any pick. The participation of Danielle was absolutely necessary, and she was an important element of the team. The idea of the program was an interesting departure from the normal tales that are seen on reality television. It was a welcome change. Components of travel, business, and history were included in the framework of the organization. Every episode was a thrilling adventure for Mike and Frank as they traveled throughout the great American countryside, knocking on doors and sorting through piles of items that many people would consider to be rubbish. However, while they were amid these mounds, they came across stories that informed them not only about the artifacts themselves, but also about the individuals who had them. The narratives presented a vivid picture of the history of the United States, ranging from the industrial foundation of the nation to the personal experiences of wars, economic ups and downs, and cultural revolutions. Additionally, as the series went on, American Pickers did more than only amuse viewers. It also educated them and brought back memories of a more basic era. Additionally, it brought to light the necessity of keeping history, not just in the form of textbooks or museums, but also in daily goods that had previously held meaning in the life of an individual. Not only did it inspire feelings of nostalgia, but it also brought to light the necessity of preserving history. A significant point that was driven home during the presentation was that worth encompasses not only monetary value, but also emotional value, historical value, and cultural value. Therefore, American Pickers was able to carve out a niche for itself by employing the optimal combination of entertaining presenters, intelligent storytelling, and the appeal of unknown riches. This allowed the show to establish itself as a premier destination. The outcome of this was that the show was able to transform the activity of antique hunting into primetime television, which is a strain of reality television. The strains of reality television, which are the beauty and attractiveness of reality television, tend to cast a shadow over the enormous demands and challenges that come with being continually in the spotlight. This is because reality television is a television show that is based on the concept of reality television. It was decided that there would be no exception for American Pickers. As the popularity of the program developed, it became increasingly challenging for the actors who appeared in it, most notably Fritz, to keep their cool. During the journey, the audience was able to witness Mike and Frank engaging in hilarious conversation, making incredible discoveries, and having exhilarating encounters. On the other hand, there were arduous workdays, a difficult travel schedule, and the constant gaze of fans who got more passionate and, at times, invasive as the popularity of the program expanded. All of these things were hidden behind the on-screen companionship. The sheer intensity of the filming schedule was one of the worries, and it was one of the hurdles that none of us had expected. As a result of episodes that condensed days of labor into a few minutes of television, it was impossible to see the reality of the many hours spent traveling, negotiating, or evaluating probable candidates. This situation made it difficult to comprehend the truth of the situation. The workdays of the workforce typically lasted for as long as 16 to 18 hours, even though they started as early as 3:30 or 4 in the morning. Because of the unchanging nature of this routine, there was very little time for any kind of personal reflection or relaxation. My tiredness was a result of the simple act of traveling, which required him to stay at a variety of hotels in a variety of locations virtually every night. All of these hotels were located in different places. Frank, since he was the one who felt the impacts of this increased attention, was particularly profoundly affected by it. It would appear that his intrinsic need for seclusion was in direct contradiction to the manner that the program adopted, which was more outwardly focused. In the year 2012, he attended the well-known event known as Fry Fest, and he characterized his experience there as being overwhelming. Many individuals are finding it more challenging to differentiate between the thin line that constitutes the boundary between public acknowledgement and personal space. Despite the undeniable fact that receiving sympathy and admiration from followers was indisputably rewarding, the individual began to experience a decline in their level of anonymity and the continual scrutiny associated with it. Additionally, situations that were more personal were brought to light by fame. There was a thorough investigation of each and every action, decision, and mistake that was made. Even though Frank was known for his restrained attitude, he began to suffer the symptoms that were associated with this meeting. The fact that he did not use social media platforms like Twitter and Instagram was a representation of his efforts to regain a sense of personal space. This was carried out in a universe in which spectators and followers were scrutinizing and assessing every facet of his existence, including his authority. Instead of being a reaction to his renowned position, it would appear that Frank's private character is based on his personality. This is the case. According to what he has stated, he does not intend to pursue a career that involves being in the public spotlight in the long run. An individual who was looking for wealth in the past found himself surrounded by attention from the present, which is an ironic turn of events. When the program came to an end, Frank frequently brought up the idea of going back to a simpler life, of simply carrying on as Frank. The fact that he remained a resident of the same house for the last quarter of a century, as well as his unwavering commitment to his 1986 Ford Ranger, provided more evidence of this. However, Frank was not the only one who struggled with the difficulties that come with living a life in the spotlight. Each and every member of the American picking team struggled with the challenges that come with popularity. Due to the fact that they had such a big fan base, they were recognized almost everywhere, which resulted in interruptions while filming, unexpected contacts, and even some awkward circumstances on occasion. When everything is said and done, the reality TV paradigm, even though it may appear to be thrilling, comes with its own set of requirements. It is a world in which the lines between private and public life are blurry, making it difficult to maintain a sense of equilibrium. Straightforwardly, Fritz's experiences on American Pickers provide a genuine glimpse into the paradox that is reality television. Even though it provides recognition and praise, as well as the opportunity to pursue one's passion, it also comes with a price tag in terms of losing one's personal space, privacy, and mental health. Stories from Frank Fritz's time spent working on American Pickers. In most cases, the legal issues, as well as the path to fame, are characterized by both the peaks of achievement and the valleys of personal difficulties. An important turning point in Frank Fritz's public life was when he was confronted with the legal issues that he had to deal with. These instances, in many different ways, revealed the significant stress that comes with being watched over, as well as the ramifications of the actions that are taken as a result of doing so. One of the first known instances of destruction to the judicial system was caused by traffic infractions. For someone with Frank's level of fame, traffic offences quickly became significant and a source of debate for both supporters and opponents. This is because traffic violations may not appear to be a major worry to the average person. A guy who may have had just as much difficulty complying with the rules in his private life as he did with those that were imposed by celebrities was depicted by the breaches, which included things like speeding and strange car registrations. However, the accusation of driving under the influence of alcohol ended up being the most talked about aspect of Frank's legal profile. This tale, unfortunately, contributed to the idea that celebrities are more likely to fall into certain traps and lead unsafe lives than the general public knows. Because Frank's recorded levels of alcohol were much higher than the legal limit, not only did he put his own life in danger, but he also put the lives of other drivers in danger. There were heated debates and discussions on the incident that took place in public forums. Several individuals expressed their dissatisfaction, while others expressed their concern and sorrow for the individual that they had grown to appreciate on American Pickers. The DUI incident was not a singular occurrence. Rather, it was the catalyst for a chain reaction that ultimately increased the number of inquiries and exposures. When the media conducted a more in-depth investigation, more claims and stories surfaced. The story that emerged was a difficult one, depicting a guy who was struggling with his problems as well as the suffocating trappings of fame. Notable in particular were the disparities that emerged between the many narratives that were presented. Several different stories characterized Frank's behavior and his reasons in varying degrees of severity. Although there were many who maintained that it was an isolated instance of poor judgment, There were others who pointed to a pattern of irresponsible behavior. As is typically the case in situations of this nature, it appeared as though the truth was obscured by a cloud of speculation, interpretation, and partial truths. Frank's struggles in the legal system. On the other hand, Frank's defense relied on a plea for compassion and recognition of his situation. The individuals who were closest to Frank, as well as his legal team, made a concerted effort to emphasize the fact that Frank was a human being who had times of weakness. They discussed the stress that he was under, as well as the ways in which his mental and emotional health was being negatively impacted by the constant attention that he was receiving. They believed that the DUI experience was more of a plea for assistance than anything else, although it was an unpleasant event. A paradox that occurs all too frequently in the world of celebrities was brought to light for the first time by the legal issues that Fritz was experiencing. One side of the equation was a flawed and weak individual who was having a difficult time dealing with the turbulent waves of fame. In contrast, the expectations and criticisms of a society that frequently oscillates between acclaim and disgust are located on the other side of the argument. The episodes highlighted the challenges of living a life that is always under the scrutiny of the public, as well as the complex relationship that exists between individual decisions and public opinion. Further proof of Frank's inner conflicts was offered by the fireworks event, as well as the difficulties he was experiencing in his relationships. In the aftermath of what was referred to as the firework incident, his life, which had always been full of exciting adventures and antiquities, took a turn that was completely unexpected. This experience, in conjunction with his turbulent relationship with Diane, provided a sobering reminder that although many antiques age wonderfully with time, human history may leave wounds that never totally go away. Frank and Diane's relationship was a patchwork of love, conflict, and times of extreme happiness and misery. It was a dynamic and unpredictable relationship. However, there were strained undertones behind the surface of their connection, which was old, full of faults and beauty, and just like the things that Frank was always looking for. These are the circumstances surrounding the fireworks display, which took place on a joyful evening and became dangerous when a firecracker was managed carelessly, resulting in significant damage to property and slight injuries to those who were there. Due to the rapid and widespread consequences that resulted from the scenario, Frank's reputation was irreparably harmed as a consequence of the event. Initially, the particulars of the tragedy began to garner a great deal of attention from the media. The pyrotechnics were supposed to light up the sky, but instead they ignited close things, which led to a fire that was difficult to put out. It was reported that the fireworks were planned to light up the sky. There was a widespread belief that Frank's carelessness was the primary cause of the issue that was widespread among the people. To add fuel to the fire of suspicion, the fact that this occurred in front of intimate friends and members of the family was a key element. These individuals were there when the event took place. Diane was particularly impacted by the events that took place because of the extent of their impact. During the period of time when the flames were jumping and dancing, observers recalled her face, which was one of full and utter horror as well as perplexity. Their relationship, which was already weak, became even more strained as a result of this catastrophe, which resulted in continuous disputes about who was to blame and charges of negligence that wrapped their once dazzling connection in darkness. Their relationship had already been frail before any of this tragedy occurred. Throughout the entirety of this, Diane's position was under close scrutiny at all times. In the beginning, she was concerned about Frank and shielded him from the most stinging remarks that were made. On the other hand, throughout the days that turned into weeks, the strain grew significantly more apparent. Their public appearances were fewer and further between, and when they did go out together, the connection that had been so clear in the past appeared to be glaringly gone. At the same time, their public outings were becoming less frequent. The story that Frank's personal life was worsening was further strengthened by speculations that he was ready to quit his relationship, which was the true reason that Frank was arrested. Indeed, it would appear that reality star Fritz is accustomed to a certain degree of celebrity and infamy. Up until very recently, he was the co-host of the historical series American Pickers. In this role, he and his colleague Mike Wolfe traveled throughout the back roads of the United States in search of peculiar old collectibles to sell. From the time it was initially shown in 2010, Picker has been a cult favorite, and Fritz has amassed a devoted following as a result of his cheery nature and peculiar fascination with cans. Devotees were naturally bewildered and upset when Frank's appearances on the program came to an end after he disagreed with Wolfe. Most recently, Fritz has been dealing with several health issues as well as an addiction condition. Fritz's problems actually date back much farther, to the time when he was jailed in 2017, while the falling out is all very much worthy of being reported in the tabloids. As a result of this, the host of American Pickers found himself in violation of the law in the middle of Iowa. As reported by WQAD, Frank Fritz was taken into custody in 2017 for driving in the incorrect direction on an interstate in the state of Iowa. He admitted to drinking before getting into the car, which led to his being charged with drunk driving. However, in the end, the co-host of American Pickers entered a guilty plea and consented to the restrictions imposed by the court. As part of this, Fritz had to pay a fine, complete a year of probation, and finish any treatment that was prescribed to him, which included participating in a drug assessment program. Because of this, as well as the fact that his family had a history of alcohol drinking, the reality star decided to seek assistance at a rehabilitation clinic. The effect that Frank's health had on his ability to participate. The fireworks show not only resulted in the creation of actual flames, but it also sparked conversations on the importance of personal responsibility, the precarious nature of relationships that are being observed, and the difficulty of achieving celebrity. It was a chapter in Frank's life that he would always feel forced to return to and reflect on, and it turned out to be a significant turning point in his life. If we were to assume that this single event was the sole reason for Frank and Diane's relationship, then it would be an oversimplification to say that their relationship was eventually strained. In spite of this, the influence that it had on the development of the relationship cannot be denied. The fissures that were already there looked to be being opened up by a force that was both internal and exterior, causing them to become broader and more noticeable. When seen from the viewpoint of Frank Fritz's life as a whole, the fireworks show and its aftermath serve as a dismal reminder of how vulnerable an individual's personal connections and public opinion can be. A tale of love, grief, and the life lessons that one must acquire along the road emerged from the wreckage of that dreadful night where it had occurred. It is impossible to overestimate the relevance of Frank's health in terms of his capacity to take part in the projects that he is now working on. Throughout every episode of American Pickers, Frank Fritz shows his extraordinary eye for antiques and his infectious joy for the entire process. On the other hand, a covert conflict that Frank was engaged in behind the scenes had an impact not only on his life, but also on his performance on the show. He has been fighting Crohn's illness for a long time, and that is what sparked this disagreement. As a result of his Crohn's disease, which is a chronic inflammatory bowel disorder, Frank had several challenges, both physically and mentally. This condition is notoriously difficult to forecast since it is characterized by periods of remission that are punctuated by severe flare-ups. Even before he became a significant figure in the public eye, Frank was already having a hard time dealing with his disease. Throughout his life, his levels of physical activity have fluctuated, his weight has fluctuated, and he has occasionally skipped episodes. The members of his audience have been present for each and every one of these developments. However, people who were affected by the sickness had to deal with more than simply the symptoms that were visible to the naked eye. Despite the fact that the therapies for Frank's Crohn's disease helped alleviate some of his symptoms, he was still forced to contend with a significant number of unpleasant side effects. His already difficult job became much more complicated as a result of his symptoms, which included changes in appetite, mood swings, and insomnia. The fact that Frank was so forthright about his illness inspired many. Through his open and honest presentations about living with Crohn's disease, he helped others who were also affected by the disease and helped bring awareness to a wider audience. As it turned out, he was an inspiration, showing that it was possible to follow one's passions fiercely while facing adversity. As the seasons passed, Frank's dedication to self-care became increasingly clear. He was forthright about his many doctor visits, the significance of enough sleep, and the nutritional changes he implemented. One of his primary objectives was to educate the public on the need for early identification and action. Despite their critical importance to his health, these changes affected the presentation's dynamics. By including contemplative interludes at regular intervals, the story went from being a surface-level look at antique collecting to a deeper analysis of human resiliency. Interspersed throughout these segments was Frank's retelling of stories from his travels. Farewell, Frank. Over time, Frank's relationship with his co-stars, especially Mike Wolfe, deepened. Their deep connection was demonstrated by Mike's concern for Frank's health and their infrequent lighter discussions on Frank's sickness. There was evidence of the friendship in each of these things. Fritz decided to come out of hiding in July 2021 and explain why he was no longer involved with the reality program that had catapulted him to stardom. Fritz denied leaving American Pickers, but said he stopped appearing in the latest episodes in an interview with The Sun. It may sound like they're interchangeable, but there's a little difference between the two. Fritz can fill you in. He went on to say that he has no intention of leaving the program and that the decision to bring him back is ultimately up to the network. After filming Wrapped, I underwent minor back surgery and then the pandemic hit. Tell me why Danielle departed from the American Pickers. Once the celebrity revealed she was on bed rest, she took to Instagram and Patreon to open up about the excruciatingly painful illness. Danielle posted an Instagram selfie of herself in a hospital bed, attached to several medical devices. Despite her surgical mask covering her face, the singer seemed to be in a good mood. She sat for a treatment while holding a Dunkin' Donuts drink. The news that she will be undergoing surgery was conveyed in a long blog-style entry that she published on Patreon. Initially, Danielle didn't think it was a huge problem, and she was confused about what her diagnosis meant, as she mentioned in her post. The History Channel personality has assured her fans that she would try her best to keep them updated while she is on bed rest. Who is your favorite character on American Pickers? And what are your thoughts on Frank leaving the show? Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. We would love to hear from you. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more interesting updates. Thank you and see you in the next video.